The asteroid misses by 4 minutes, which is not a metaphor. It is arithmetic, the difference between impact and passage measured in the time it takes to drink a cup of coffee, and the rock screams through the upper atmosphere close enough to turn night skies white across half the planet, close enough that tidal forces crack coastlines and drag ocean water into temporary mountains before releasing it, close enough that every large animal on Earth feels the pressure wave as a physical thing passing through their bodies. And then it is gone, back into the dark, and the sky closes behind it, and the dinosaurs keep going. And this is where the story that never happened begins. You are a troodontid in what will eventually be called Montana. Roughly wolf-sized, feathered, warm-blooded, with forward-facing eyes and a brain already disproportionately large for your body. And you have hands, not human hands, 3-fingered grasping structures designed for holding prey. But hands in the sense that matters, which is structures capable of interacting with the world rather than merely moving through it. And above you, sauropods move through cycads like weather systems with legs and overhead pterosaurs the size of small aircraft ride thermals. And somewhere east, tyrannosaurs are doing what tyrannosaurs do in river valleys, and the world is complete in a way that leaves no room for what comes next. In the timeline where the rock hits, no mammals expanding into emptied niches, no primates, no humans, no cities, no satellites, no moment 66 million years later where a species looks back and calls the absence of all this a catastrophe. The world is simply full of what it already is, and because it is full, it evolves harder rather than wider, sharpening what exists rather than replacing it. And the first hook is this: a full world does not stop changing. It just changes more slowly and more strangely. 10 million years pass and the tyrannosaurs have fractured into lineages, one branch lightening its frame across generations, longer legs, narrower skull, a pursuit predator that can sustain speeds. The original could not have maintained for more than seconds. Another branch going the opposite direction, abandoning speed entirely for mass. An ambush specialist so heavy that the ground records its passing in compressed soil that fossilizes, and the herbivores respond the way prey always responds to refined predators, which is by refining their own defenses. Ceratopsians developing frill coloration so complex it functions as individual identification across distances. Hadrosaurs resonating cranial chambers that produce calls carrying kilometers through forest. Entire ecosystems communicating in frequencies too low for any mammal ear to register. And mammals are still there, small, nocturnal, intelligent by their own modest standards, but trapped beneath a ceiling they cannot break because every time they push toward larger body size, something with feathers and better legs arrives to explain the problem with that idea. Primates never happen. Humanity remains an unreachable configuration of biology inside animals that will never assemble it. And 30 million years after the miss, something begins. That evolution always begins when the conditions are right, which is the slow compression of intelligence under environmental pressure. The troodontid descendants hunting in increasingly complex forest environments are accumulating cognitive advantages generation by generation, their problem-solving capacity increasing not because anything decided this was the direction, but because the forest rewarded it, and rewarded it, and rewarded it across spans of time that make human civilization look like a rounding error. They begin caching food, which requires memory of location and time, and then defending caches, which requires social coordination, and then the first time one drops hard-shelled prey onto a rock from height to crack it. Nothing important happens at that moment. The animal eats and moves on. But evolution has noticed, and noticing is how everything begins. And the second hook is this: intelligence in a world of dinosaurs does not develop the way human intelligence developed. It develops sideways, shaped by bodies that were already bipedal and already had grasping limbs and already had complex social hierarchies built around visual display and vocal communication. It develops through territory and migration and weather reading and the particular problem solving that comes from hunting prey smarter than yourself across environments that keep changing. 50 million years after the miss, and certain dromaeosaur descendants are hunting in coordinated groups with role specialization that observers from any other timeline would call tactical. Flush animals moving prey toward ambush positions, sentinels posted at escape routes, juveniles learning through observation rather than instinct alone, and coastal populations are selecting stones by weight and shape for cracking shellfish, not randomly, not accidentally, with the particular repeatability that means the behavior has crossed from accident into technique and from technique into tradition. And the third hook arrives here because tradition is the beginning of culture, and culture is what allows intelligence to accumulate faster than evolution alone can produce it. What one generation learns, the next generation does not have to relearn from scratch. And this is the ratchet that turns smart animals into something that requires a different category. 100 million years after the myths and the word city does not apply. But the word settlement might, enormous woven nesting complexes spanning kilometers through engineered forest. Stone arrangements around thermal vents occupied seasonally, hunting territories managed across generations through vocal protocols complex enough to encode not just alarm and direction, but history, the identity of individuals, the memory of where prey moved last season. Fire never becomes controlled technology because feathers and flame have an obvious incompatibility that mammalian skin did not have. But heat is understood. Geothermal vents are used for hardening tools. Stones are selected at riverbeds with the intentionality of someone who knows what they are looking for and why. And the giant lineages are still out there. Sauropod descendants in open plains achieving sizes that make the original look modest because stable ecosystems without periodic extinction events allow gigantism to keep escalating without the ceiling that catastrophe normally imposes, and predatory lineages have evolved to match them. Tyrannosaur descendants capable of coordinated pressure against animals weighing over 80 tons. Their skulls narrowed for efficiency, their feathers thickened at the poles into insulation so dense it reads as fur at a distance. And the fourth hook is the most important one, which is that 200 million years after the myths, the universe tries again. Not an asteroid this time, but a volcanic event of continental scale. Atmospheric instability, ocean acidification, the kind of extinction pressure that does not care what is developed in the intervening time. And this is where the intelligence that spent 200 million years slowly building itself proves what it is for. Strategic migration, preserved food stores, defended thermal refugees, the application of accumulated knowledge to a crisis that would have been purely survivable or not survivable by luck for anything that came before, and the civilization's fracture, entire lineages vanish. Ecosystems that took 50 million years to assemble collapse in 10,000 years. But the intelligent lineages do not vanish. They contract and remember and rebuild. And what comes out the other side is accelerated because catastrophe survived through planning produces more planning, and 300 million years after the myths, the world contains something that no impact timeline ever produced. Feathered descendants of Maniraptoran predators managing ecosystems across continental scales, not because they decided to, but because they discovered that managed systems produce more than unmanaged ones, and the discovery stuck. Pterosaur descendants carrying riders between structures grown from biological materials secreted by engineered colonial organisms, tools made from volcanic glass and shaped by claws that manipulate objects differently than fingers would, and therefore produce technology that fingers never would have reached. Their visual spectrum extending into wavelengths human eyes never accessed, and their architecture reflecting this, colored in frequencies that would be invisible to any primate. And the fifth hook, the final one, is this. 500 million years after the asteroid missed by 4 minutes, something stands at the edge of a cliff above an inland sea and watches a migrating herd move along the shoreline below. And it is descended in unbroken line from the troodontid in the Fern Valley, and it stands nearly upright, covered in iridescent feathers that shift color with internal state, the way a face shifts expression, and its four-fingered hands rest on a tool that has no name in any human language because no human language exists to name it, and behind it structures grown into the cliff face glow with controlled bioluminescence. And it watches the herd below, not with hunger, but with the particular quality of attention that belongs to an animal that has been managing this migration route for longer than human civilization existed. And somewhere in its genome, there is still a reflex, a freeze response triggered by large shadows passing overhead, a fossil instruction from a time when shadows meant predators. It fires occasionally when something large crosses the sun, a momentary stillness with no object, a behavioral ghost from 500 million years ago, and the animal stands there on the cliff above the inland sea in the late light of an Earth where one rock arrived 4 minutes late, and everything that followed from that lateness is standing here looking out at a world that never needed to be inherited because it never needed to be emptied. And the wind moves its feathers and it turns back toward the light in the cliff face, and the story that never happened continues without a name for what it is.